Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on ChannelOne television. On The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, and ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We have a very grave show for you today because on the 28th of February, which was the last day of last month, Saturday, the US and Israel began a series of attacks against Iran. Iran has retaliated, and many people think we are at the brink of a full-blown Gulf War, which could even lead to other things. I'll be discussing this from two perspectives. We'll look at the geopolitical issues around this US-Israel-Iran conflict, and also look at the energy implications when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. So tonight we are asking, are we at the brink of another Gulf War? We have a very troubling series of events. On Saturday, the 28th of February, President Donald Trump and Israeli President Netanyahu launched a series of attacks against the Islamic Republic of Iran. They bombed over 1,000 locations, leading to the death of a number of senior officials of the Iranian government, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and some key figures in his government. They also killed the former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. The Iranians retaliated by attacking parts of northern Israel and significantly attacked some bases in the Gulf region where US has multiple military bases. I'll be speaking to Professor Vladimir Nchedanso to put this in global context for us, what this means and how the end game will be. Later on, within that same area, about 20% of the world's oil production moves through a small 30-kilometer strait called Hormuz. That same area produces a lot of natural gas and oil. What are the implications of this type of conflict on global oil prices and the world economy? Abbas Tasunti is head of the economics at MPA. He will speak to us as well. Before I speak to my guests, I'd like to show you a few maps so you understand where we are. So there are three. As of Sunday, this was the way the conflict looked like. So the Islamic Republic of Iran is where you see a lot of the red dots. And these red dots indicate places that the Americans and the Israelis had bombed. Iran's capital, Tehran, affected by a lot of these bombings. We can see the multiplicity of the spots all through the country. This has increased in terms of the bombings, all right? Now, what is key is that the U.S. is very far away from here, but the U.S., as we've been told, operates on the principle of military bases with countries that are close to it. So from as far up here as Egypt, they have military bases, Turkey, military bases, a couple in Syria. Then you have a number in the Jordan area, Lebanon, all through to Saudi Arabia. They have military bases as far down south as Oman, UAE, which has Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain. So the US is not physically close to Iran, but because of the location of these military bases, has been able to launch attacks against Iran from these bases. President Donald Trump told the world that he was aiming at regime change. And so in the first wave of attacks, the Iranian leadership was wiped out. Indeed, we know that Hezbollah, which the US accuses of being affiliated to the Iranian government, Hezbollah being based in Lebanon, has also had some of its people attacked, as has Hamas. What we've seen now, though, is that the attacks by the US and Israel on Iran have been met by retaliatory attacks against Israel. So you see the blue dots. So they've attacked parts of Israel and some US bases in these Gulf states, which are known as economic powerhouses. They are part of the Gulf Coordinating Council. And it's becoming three issues. Air travel has been affected because this area is like one of the world's busiest transportation hubs. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, you have Etihad Airlines, you have Emirates Airlines, and you have Qatar Airlines. These are part of a massive fleet of aircraft that run in this hub where a lot of people travel to the rest of the world from. So travel has been hit. Now, energy installations, because Saudi Arabia has the world's largest oil company, Aramco. Some major energy installations have been hit or shut down on a precautionary basis. Let me show you in the next chart the way the casualty looks. So as of 9 a.m. this morning, everywhere you see blue is where casualties have been recorded on the Iranian side. So Iran, according to the Red Crescent, has lost 555 people in Iran. Another 2 people were killed in Iraq with 5 injured, again based on attacks by US and Israel. And then in Lebanon, 13 killed, 149 injured. Israel launching attacks against parts of areas in Lebanon controlled by Hezbollah, which Israel and the US describe as a terrorist organization. You notice the red dots are a lot more because these dots show where Iran has chosen to respond. So they've attacked bases in Oman, 5 people injured as of this morning. UAE, which of course Dubai, the world's busiest airport, is located, 3 have been killed, 58 injured. Indeed, we've spoken to a Ghanaian blogger who was in Dubai when one of the missiles fell, and he narrates the horror of seeing this happen very close to where he was sleeping. Qatar has also been attacked by the Iranians in retaliation, 16 injured. Bahrain, 1 killed, 4 injured. Kuwait, 1 killed, 32 injured. Indeed, the Kuwaiti Defense Forces say they accidentally shot down a U.S. air jet fighter. I think 3 of them. We understand so far 4 Americans have been killed. This is updated to 4. And of course, the Iranians have also attacked bases in Jordan and Israel. So this is the state of play. So whereas it's a war between 3 countries, you have about 8 other countries. I think the next map shows this better. About 8 countries have been drawn into this battle. And I think this makes it very, very clear. So Oman, with their capital Muscat, UAE, with the powerhouse Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Qatar, which hosted the 2022 World Cup, Bahrain, an oil-producing country, Saudi Arabia, the strongest Sunni nation, produces a lot of oil, also drawn into this conflict. Kuwait, which was the center of the original Gulf War, where the US invaded Iraq because Iraq had wanted to take Kuwait. And by the way, we know that Iraq itself was backed by the Americans in the 1980 to 88 war fought between Iraq and Iran. At the time, the Americans were in love with Saddam Hussein. They later fell out because don't forget that the Iranian Revolution had brought the Islamists into authority, having overthrown the Shah. So America's history is very checkered. Prof will explain a lot of that to us. Iraq has been drawn into this, Jordan as well, all the way through Cyprus. Why Cyprus? Because the UK also has a military base there. Although UK hasn't really joined the attack, they've been drawn into this. So there's a British military base in Cyprus that the Iranians have hit. Lebanon has been hit by the Israelis and Israel as well. So from as far north as Cyprus, all through to Oman. Now the big question I'll ask Professor Nchidanso is, what should the Gulf states do? They are known as havens of peace. They are being drawn into a war because they are hosting US military bases. If they keep quiet and Iran keeps bombing them, already a lot of countries are removing their citizens from the Gulf states. Travel is based on stability. What will the Gulf states do? What will be the end game? Does Iran have what it takes to continue fighting with a lot of its leaders having been killed, with over 1,000 locations from Tibrit in the north all through to Chabahar down south being bombed? So these are the issues we'll be dealing with. Let me start by showing you a short video that Akosia did. She spoke to Akosia Ocho, is our president correspondent. She spoke briefly to Zion Felix in Dubai when one of the missiles fell, and he describes the horror he saw.
So I am in Dubai right now. I got here around February 10. I came for a group tour and also for personal tour and meet Ghanaians over here. So I was to leave here on 28th February around 2:30 p.m. from Dubai to Stansted in London. And then after checking everything, I was told that we board around 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. So around 2 o'clock, we had emails that they've rescheduled the flights from the 2:30, 2:45 to 2 hours later from the original scheduled flights. So around 4 p.m., I saw a lot of people checking the board inside the airport, Dubai airport. And when I went there, I saw that most of the flights had been cancelled. So we went to the counter, I think gate A9. We went there to ask what's next for us. And when we got there, they gave us voucher, which gave us transportation, airport pickup to hotel accommodation. In fact, Emirates gave us 5-star. Well, gave me. Let me talk about myself. Emirates gave me 5-star hotel. They gave me transportation from the airport to the hotel, and they also gave me visa. On Sunday around 12, I had my phone beeping, security alarm. When I had a beep, I put it off, and when I woke up in the morning, I read the message on it, which was telling us to get a secure place to hide because there were things going to be in the air.
Have you received any official communication from the embassy in UAE with regards to any evacuation processes?
I've not got any brief from any local authority. It is the Emirates people that we mostly deal with. We mostly see press statements from the government on socials and in the news informing us of developments here in the country and then in the city Dubai. They've promised to make sure that everybody is safe in this country, and I think they are doing exactly that because they've tried as much as possible to intercept a lot of missiles in the air for us to be safe in this country. But personally, no government official has reached out to us in the hotel. It is Emirates that came here this morning. Emirates came to our hotel this morning to take our details, our name, passport details, our flight, hotel rooms, and we asked when we'll be flying, and the lady informed me that she doesn't actually know when we'll be flying, but if any development comes, they will relay it to us. We want to leave. We want to leave, so we would ask government to come to our aid and any means possible that they can evacuate us from here to Ghana. We are ever ready to leave because in as much as we are safe here, I do believe that I'm safe because they are trying to solve everything. They are trying to intercept things. I'm still in fear because of how things are escalating within the region.
So let me go to Professor Vladimir Chidanso, one of our foremost international relations experts. Indeed, we spoke to him after the Americans abducted the president of Venezuela, Maduro. This was, I think, a month ago. And now we're back here with another set of questions. Prof, thanks for joining us on The Point of View.
Thanks for having me.
I wish I didn't have to call you to be asking you these questions, but duty calls. Did you see this coming?
Sure.
Did you see this coming in terms of Saturday night, Israel, US attacking Iran, especially when President Trump had told us in October or earlier in 2025 that he had bombed Iran's nuclear facilities and that Iran's nuclear capability was severely limited? Was it surprising that he chose in February to attack a country he believed was no longer a threat as of last year to the US?
It didn't come to me as a surprise at all. Thanks for having me. The point is that a friend, a diplomat, told me that America is wearing panties at the bottom of which is a bat, a hungry bat, which is Israel. So at any time the bat tries to make noise, America will have to respond, irrespective of what the noise is. Since 2002, America has always said that they didn't want to see Iraq succeed directly that way. But the whole story started from 1952, when America engineered the overthrow of the Shah, who had threatened to nationalize oil and oil production in Iran, just because America wanted the oil so badly. And at that time, mind you, oil was selling at $1 a barrel, just $1, until the Gaddafi revolution of '69, which then created the space for oil to go up to $4 a barrel. Then OPEC was formed. Then the Yom Kippur War of 1973 created a condition for oil to be weaponized. After this, oil prices quadrupled, and it affected the whole world. It affected Achampon, It created the condition for Rawlings Revolution. So what we are seeing is going to have such rippling effect also on global economy. The point is the reckless nature of American unilateralism is something we don't have to be surprised about. I knew that anytime Israel wants America to do its bidding, it would. And that's exactly what happened. Netanyahu fears being sent to prison. He fears elections this year. So, Jack, Trump, why don't you do it? Because if I do it now, the world may talk. So, hiding behind all this, America decided to do what is unthinkable. And it is making the UN very, very impotent and creating problems for multilateralism. So for me, I'm not surprised. I'm not in the least surprised that it happened.
President Trump said to the American public and to the world that he was aiming at regime change. This was when he spoke on Sunday. It appears his call to Iranians to take to the streets after the killing of some of their leaders has not been heeded. Is he miscalculating the Iranian state structure? Because having taken out a large chunk of their leaders, in fact, Iran's response has been pretty strident. They have continued bombing as well, and they've said they are not even going to talk. So is there a strategic miscalculation or underestimation of the Iranian resolve, meaning that this could drag on longer than Mr. Trump had hoped for?
If you watch the history of wars, if you watch the history of international relations, when nations are very powerful, and I would urge you to read Paul Kennedy's How Nations, Powerful Nations Rise and Fall, Paul Kennedy. The point is this, that when nations go beyond relative power to seek absolute power, this is what happens. They refuse to think. Miles Measure has shown us how powerful nations refuse to think just because they think they have accumulated so much power and the power will do the thinking for them. If America learns their lessons, they would know that at no point has regime change created the conducive atmosphere that they wanted. They changed the Shah in 57. It didn't work until 79 when there was the revolution. They changed Gaddafi and it brought more terrorism, especially to the Sahel. They changed Saddam Hussein, killed him during the period of Ramadan, thinking that that would re-engineer the country's whatever it is. But that brought more chaos. It is from there, from the ashes of regime change, that we had ISIL, the most notorious terrorist organization that ever lived, to flourish. So if they were actually learning their lessons, they would know that regime change in nowhere else but a theocratic, monolithic state like Iran is not going to bring them any good. In fact, what I'm fearing is that terrorism is going to have an uptick, and America and American citizens are at the bottom of the outfall, because Afghanistan created the condition where 9/11 happened. So Trump, if he went to a better school and he knows his history very well, he would have known that no type of change of regime has created peace for America. Not even Operation Restore Hope, which hope was not restored in Ethiopia, has brought any good change.
Still dealing with timelines, he appears to have said this will be 4 weeks. From what we've seen from the Iranians, they've dug in and they don't even want to talk at this point. Do you have a sense of how long this could go? And particularly because some people have drawn parallels between this and the Gulf War in the early 90s. At the time, the senior Bush invaded Iraq because he claimed Iraq had invaded Kuwait, again, over oil issues. They wanted to take Saddam Hussein out. My point is, can we say that this could actually be the beginning of a new Gulf War?
Well, it depends on 2-3 things. Number one, it depends on how resilient Iran could be or how much stocks they have for their missiles and their drones. And see, they are handicapped in the sense that more than about 90 billion of their foreign exchange has been frozen in foreign banks. And there are sanctions on them. It depends also on whether China and Russia can supply them or come into the war like Russia went into the war in Syria. It depends also on how the international community takes the whole scenario, what is happening seriously and act on them. If we are all lethargic and fold our arms, then it can continue for a long time. Because I know Israel is loaded and America doesn't have what it takes to be shameful of what it's doing. So these are the scenarios. If Iraq is resilient and is capable of having more stocks, if they have them already, and they are able to restock from, say, Russia or North Korea, then I tell you there is more resolve, there's more motivation on the part of Iran to fight on. Now that they are able to break through the defenses of Israel and hit Israel, it looks as though they are more motivated.
Some people think a fourth factor to what you've said could be the reaction of the Gulf states, Bahrain, Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and of course the others, Qatar. They seem to have been drawn into a war because Iran's retaliation has hit their soil. And as we spoke to some of the people earlier, clearly Dubai and these kinds of places are built on a certain view of stability. There are lots of expatriate workers there. They are a global transportation hub because a lot of people go there. It's very modernized. Will they retaliate by attacking Iran, or will they tell America and Israel that this your adventure in Iran is damaging our land, so you should stop? What are the choices open to the Gulf states, and how critical will they be in how this ends?
Both or either of what you have said are legitimate choices, but it depends on what they would do. If they are forced by America to enter, then it would mean that they are entering and making sure that Iran is decimated. In that sense, Iran might go what we call the apocalyptic way. Apocalyptic in war is a sense where you don't care your death. You are prepared to die, but the other must also die. And I can see the apocalyptic nature of Iran since the days of Ahmadinejad. And I believe that the Gulf, the GCC countries need their peace, and the peace choice is to gang up together and tell America and Israel to stop and persuade Iran also to stop so that they could come together as Arab states. Unfortunately, the Middle East is volatile since 1948, only because the Arab states have not been able to come together as one to make choices for their own peace. They've mortgaged their peace to American whims and caprices. And that is what is creating more problem in the Middle East. So I believe this is not the time to gang up against Iran. This is the time to rather gang up against America and Israel, whose interests have created more problems for the Middle East. This is the time to gang up against Israel and America.
Your third possible factor, when you said how long this could go on, was what Russia and China would do. Russia is already in a war against Ukraine. You mentioned they were involved in Syria. Of course, now Assad has been taken out. How do you see Russia's appetite for entering this? And also China, because we're told that a lot of China's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz, which now is a no-go zone. So China needs its energy, and in a way they are indirectly affected by what happens to Iran. Because don't forget, Venezuela's oil was largely going to China, and the Americans took out Maduro. Now, a lot of oil that China depends on comes from Iran. This is certainly going to affect China as well. How do you see Russia and China's posture about this in terms of waiting it out, direct engagement, or indirectly supporting the Iranians with weapons and intelligence?
I do not think either of them has a motivation or interest to involve themselves directly. That would sound a little undiplomatic, a little weird. But in their hearts, they will be supporting Iran. So they may find a tacit way of trying to supply, I believe. They find a fine way of trying to supply stocks. That is the only way left to them. China has an interest because of what you mentioned, the oil. And Russia has an interest because of at least opposition to Western domination of global issues and geopolitics. So both will find a way. And I believe North Korea might join one way or the other, not directly also, but finding a way of supplying stocks, intelligence, and everything from these three countries will be, in fact, the satellite will be seriously used, and intelligence will be of great use to the Iranians.
I have two more points for you, Prof, before you go. What are the possibilities that this could escalate into a full-blown world war? Don't forget, January we had Venezuela. Already there's a massive challenge with Cuba, with what the Marco Rubio has been speaking about them, himself being a Cuban expert as US Secretary of State. And now you have March, Iran. I mean, nobody begins a world war by saying, I'm going to fight a world war. But if you look at the trajectory of events since the beginning of this administration of the US, is a world war a realistic possibility?
As for possibilities in war, they are always there, because an innocuous situation can trigger a bigger war. The battle lines are drawn already from time immemorial, and everything points to the fact that every other nation is preparing for war one way or the other. So it depends on how the politicians restrain themselves in the rhetorics and in actions or inactions. Inaction, if the rest of the world sits back and watch these things going on without doing anything or supporting one side or the other, and actions when they join officially and directly. So as for possibility of a world war at any point in time, because we have this state-centric approach to international relations, and we are avoiding what we placed ourselves in from 1945, the institutional system, institutionalism, multilateralism. We are killing it. When we kill it, there's nobody to restrain us anymore. It's happened before World War I, World War II. That's what happened. Things were being discussed, people were threatening left and right, and all of a sudden some idiot starts something, and the whole world is in flame. So I see a possibility, but the probability is a little not up to 1 yet. The possibility is always there, and what we are doing creates it needs just one trigger. It needs Russia to say, "Hey, Jack," and America to counter, and then we are there. Or it needs, like if Iran already has a secret kind of weapon, like a nuclear weapon, and is able to strike Israel with a nuclear weapon right now, then the doors are open for a world war.
Don't forget, the whole quarrel between America and Iran has been about nuclear capabilities. And I think that the point around the number of countries with nuclear capabilities becomes more serious. We do know that India and Pakistan did some skirmishes a few months back. North Korea is suspected to have nuclear weapons. Israel certainly has. And of course, the US is the only country to have used a nuclear weapon in a war. How scared should we be? Because a lot of people may not have been alive when the Hiroshima and Nagasaki were attacked with a nuclear weapon. But how dangerous are nuclear weapons? And what would that portend for the world? Were any of the factions willing to go that far?
Look, if anybody is interested in how far we are close to doomsday, just check how much each of these countries you've mentioned have in stock in terms of weapons that can destroy the world. The display China made on their Independence Day should be a pointer to the fact that if any country has half of that and they stake themselves up for war, then there's no part of the world that will be left. China has created what we call the sun on earth. The power of the sun is in the hands of China now. That they can, look, the sun is 93 million miles away from us, and how do we feel it? So if somebody can create that power close to us on earth and turns it on to any part of the world, it's burnt off completely. Don't forget already about the nuclear weapons which we have. The atomic bomb that was used in Hiroshima, we have created more powerful ones of late. These countries you were mentioning, India, Pakistan, and North Korea especially, has more powerful ones. They are Hwasong 14, which they demonstrated and caused Trump to go and negotiate with Kim Jong-un, should inform us that countries have what it takes to destroy the world. And that is what we should be worried about.
Let's pray.
We have stockpiles that can blow the world away, in fact, destroy the world completely.
Let's pray it doesn't get there. Thank you for your insight, Professor Vladimir Chudanso. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
This is still the point of view. Tonight we're looking at the issues in the Middle East, Israel, US versus Iran, with a number of Gulf countries being drawn in. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the economic implications, in particular, the issue of oil. That zone produces a lot of world's oil. Already, oil prices have started going up, and gas prices in Europe have gone up close to 50%. Abbas Tasunti is with the MPA. He'll be telling us how prepared Ghana is if there were to be any shortages or price adjustments occasioned by the conflict, and how we will be able to survive it. Stay with us. The point of view tonight is not just discussing the geopolitics of the Israel-US-Iran conflict. It's also looking at the economic implications. When we talk Middle East, we talk oil, we talk crude, we talk natural gas, we talk logistics and transportation. We're speaking to Abbas Tasunti of the MPA very shortly. I'd like to show you a video which has made the rounds, essentially explaining the critical nature of the Gulf. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is part of the Persian Gulf. The reason this is called the Gulf War, or the Gulf region, is the Persian Gulf is a place that connects Asia to Europe. And this Strait of Hormuz is a very critical artery for global logistics, transporting oil from two parts of the world. Let's hear this quick analysis, and then I'll show you a few more things.
Kilometers wide, lies between Iran and Oman. Around 20% of the world's oil and nearly 30% of global LNG flow through it every single day. Iran's ready, with submarines, missiles, and fast boats stationed nearby. One missile strike, oil tankers stop, prices could spike up to $200 a barrel. Global markets crash, recession begins. That's why the U.S. Navy is always here, to keep the energy flowing. Because this isn't just Iran's choke point, it's the world's lifeline.
So that's the Strait of Hormuz. As we've been told, 20% of the world's crude or oil passes through there. Some people believe even more. 30% of the world's natural LNG, liquid natural gas, passes through the strait. Already, 3 vessels have been hit as a result of this conflict, and there have been announcements that vessels should not try to cross at any time. So already we're seeing that that strait has been blocked. Let's show you the behavior of oil prices, all right? Now, this is Bloomberg earlier today. Oil jumps to its highest in 4 years. And you note that we are in early March. So as of January, oil was teetering around the mid-50s to $60 per barrel. This is crude oil. Now, we're told it's getting closer to $73 or $72 per barrel. Abbas will give us the exact figures. Why are crude prices important? How crude behaves affects everything. Don't forget, even though Ghana produces crude oil in our petroleum fields, we are a net importer of finished products. We don't own all the crude we produce in Ghana, and because we depend so much on imported finished products, once the base price, crude, goes up, it affects the price of finished products. So that's another important thing to look out for. Abbas will discuss that with us. The other chart I want to show you, and by the way, this is the highest in 4 years, and the conflict is only 3 days old. So imagine if this conflict goes on for 4 weeks. Imagine if it gets into a full-blown war. In the except I play, some people think it will go beyond 100. Once oil hits $100 a barrel, everything's thrown out of gear. But that's not the only factor here. Liquefied natural gas, or gas, which is usually what the Europeans depend on, because don't forget, because of the Russia-Ukraine war, a lot of European countries no longer source their gas from Russia because of the sanctions. So they depend on places like Qatar, Oman, particularly as a major facility in Qatar that does gas. Because of the bombings that Iran is retaliating, a lot of the energy installations, Aramco's, one of their main oil installations, and some other installations in Iran have been closed down from precautionary level. Now, once you have that type of situation, gas prices will go up. So look at the gas chart. You have gas prices jumping pretty steeply. So you have gas prices in Europe going up pretty steeply. It's probably one of the highest we've seen in a long time. Oil jumping for the highest in 4 years, and then European gas surges to highest in a year. Started out this 2026 around 40. It's gone now above 45, and it's going up. Look at the green part of the chart. Very, very high indeed. This is again a Bloomberg chart. And this is Dutch front month futures. This Europe's gas benchmark. So European gas prices have almost doubled in the past 3 days. And then, of course, there's a cloud at the end of this, the silver line of the cloud. Gold prices have also gone up because people are moving to gold with all the uncertainty. Ghana is Africa's largest producer of gold. So whilst oil prices could hurt us, some people think the gold price surge could benefit us. And therefore, you look at gold going above $5,000 an ounce. Pretty good news for Ghana. Of course, if you export your gold to the Middle East and the Middle East is having crisis, it could affect even the ability of people to buy your gold. Let's talk to Abbas. Thanks for joining us, the head of economics at the MPA. Abbas, is that the right title?
Economic Regulation and Planning.
Wonderful, economic regulation and planning. In your scenario planning, is war one of your factors when you do your analysis every morning before you present to either your boss or the president? Is war a factor in any of the things any of the scenarios you model?
Yes, so geopolitics is always one of the things we look at when we are monitoring prices because it's one of the factors that always drives prices up sharply. So every day as we monitor the world market, we always look at geopolitical issues. And in fact, we've been monitoring this issue for some time now. If you remember somewhere in December when President Trump told the Iranians that help is coming soon, the markets have been anticipating that something like this will happen. And so every time we monitor the world market, geopolitics is one of the things that we always look out for.
How do you interpret the current prices of crude? The Bloomberg chart shows us close to $72 a barrel, moving quite steeply higher than the 55 or 56, 60 that it was a few weeks back. How steep is the rise and how concerning is that from an energy analysis perspective?
So it is concerning because for some time now we've seen prices in Ghana fall at the pumps. And this was mainly because we saw the world market prices come down. And also our exchange rate, as we know, has been doing well. So that has led more price at the pump fall. But if you've observed, we've seen prices rise for the past 2 windows. In fact, the last window of February and the current window we are in, prices are expected to rise. And this has been because of, again, this war that the market has been anticipating. Then the checks that we've done, or the numbers show that between January and February, the price of crude oil, for example, rose by $10 per barrel because of this risk that the market was pricing in. And so that has led to our price go up here in Ghana as well. So prices going up is always something that we are concerned about because we prefer stability in prices, and any issues that affect supply in geopolitics is always one of them. It leaves prices up, and consumers will always complain about this.
The analysis suggests this is the highest in 4 years. So according to Bloomberg, oil jumps the most in 4 years. And this is just day 3 of the conflict. So if this continues for another month, how do you see the situation? What are the scenarios you're looking at? Of course, it's just a 3-day war, and already this is the highest in 4 years. So imagine if it goes on for a month, what are we going to be seeing?
We are hoping it doesn't get there. But the issue again is that if you remember, exactly 4 years ago, Russia attacked Ukraine and prices shot up sharply. And that is why the news is that this is the highest in 4 years. After they rose to their peaks sharply in 2022, they came down, they started coming down. The thing is that one thing about war is after a while, the risk gets priced into the price. It gets priced into the product price, and therefore the price didn't come down at some point. So the Russia-Ukraine war, we all know, has still been ongoing. Prices went up sharply when it started. After a while, it started dropping again because the market will always find a way to survive. And so we pray that this particular war does not extend beyond the month like you are saying. But if it does, the thing about the market, like I've said, is that the market will always price it in. It will not continue rising. It will peak at some point and then start falling because there are measures in place that the world will always will bring in to bring stability to the market. You know, for example, the strategic petroleum reserves that the US and the IEA member countries keep. Whenever supply on the market, the global market starts dropping, they will release them. Another thing that will happen is that OPEC members will begin to produce more to make up for the shortfall that we have. You know, they have their quotas for production, and they do this because they want to keep price at certain levels. But where there's a shortfall on the market because one of their members is not producing, and in this case, if Iran's products are not coming to the market, then the OPEC countries will definitely have a meeting and then look at producing more. Saudi Arabia is always in a position to produce more than they are doing now. So the markets will always adjust after some point. We will not see price continue to rise forever.
Ghana has oil, and therefore, when prices go up, some people believe it shouldn't be a bad thing because we will benefit from high prices. How come inevitably consumers suffer when world prices get elevated over a long period? Explain that to us.
So first of all, Ghana has oil, but our oil is also priced based on international price assessment. So our oil is not isolated from what the price on the world markets are. So the Jubilee oil that is priced here in Ghana, it has a very direct relationship with the Brent oil that is used globally. And so as Brent goes up, Ghana's oil will also go up, and as Brent comes down, Ghana's price will also come down. But we also have to look at the fact that Ghana, like you mentioned, is a net importer of petroleum products. Yes, we produce crude oil. The crude oil that we produce in Ghana, if we were to compare it to our consumption, assuming Ghana owns all of that crude oil that is produced domestically, it would have been able to meet our demand if we process everything domestically. First of all, we don't have the domestic refinery capacity to produce everything that we need. But the most important thing is that not everything that's produced in Ghana belongs to the country Ghana. We know we get some part of it. And so the portion we get, if it was need to stay in Ghana, it will meet our demand. So that's something that we must take note of. And so we will continue to be exposed to the global market because of some of these dynamics.
In the price that people pay at the pump, is it just the world price of crude that determines that? What other factors determine how affordable petroleum products are at the pump?
So one, the price is number one. The cost of the product from the source is always number one. But another thing that this particular war, for example, is causing is also the other costs like freight. As we know, you showed a video that showed that the Strait of Hormuz has been closed because of the attacks there. Now, what this means is that the vessels have to travel longer routes. And so their cost of shipping will go up. The freight cost will go up. Insurance will also go up because of the threat that is on the market, on the threats on the seas. And so all of these combined will definitely lead to price go up. Now, remember that in economics, demand and supply always play a role. As supply from Iran is going down, China, which has been taking a lot of this oil, will now look to other places to take part of the oil. And so it means that the European world, the other parts of the world are now going to crumble with China for what is left. And this is definitely going to let demand go up. And so as demand goes up, it is also going to lead to price go up. And so the price of crude oil alone is not what we look at. The other factors, like I mentioned, freight, the insurance, and also the demand, which may be rising more than supply, always play a role.
We'll take a break. When I come back, I have two more questions for you because the dollar has begun strengthening again in the wake of what has happened since the war began. And then, of course, the big question, do we have enough finished products so that if there was a global supply shortage, Ghana could survive? We're still on the point of view, looking at the geopolitical issues within the Gulf region. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're still on the point of view. We started off with Professor Vladimir Nchudanso, who discussed the geopolitics of the Middle East and US unilateralism, the Israeli effect, and the Iranian response. Now we're looking at the economics of war, the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major artery for the supply of oil products, and of course, whether Ghana has enough stocks. Now, Abbas, thanks for staying with us. Where do we get our finished products from? Is the Middle East as critical to us? And is that strait part of the routes that the oil that comes to Ghana uses?
Yes, so a very good portion of what comes to Ghana goes through the Strait, but it doesn't go through the Strait directly to Ghana. We benchmark our products mostly to the Northwest Euro markets because it's the closest trading hub to Ghana. So products, typically crude oil that will leave the Middle East to refineries in Europe will pass through the Strait. And India also has products passing through the Strait. Recently, we've been having some of our products coming from India. The major refinery called Reliance. Most of its products will come from, most of our products will come from Reliance to West Africa, offshore Lumi. And so as long as crude oil transport through the Strait of Hormuz is affected to both Europe and India, we are directly going to be affected.
So the question is, do we have enough stocks of finished products in the event that this drags on and the closure of the strait continues? They've already closed it, right? 20% of the world's oil comes from there. If it continues for, say, a month or half a year, what's going to happen?
So available stocks, yes, we have enough to meet our demand as a country. Availability of petroleum products and ensuring energy security is one of our topmost priorities here at the NPA, because without the products being available, we will not even be able to discuss pricing. And so product availability is something that we always do. And so what we do is we have a plan to ensure supply, both for imports and for domestic supply. Let me start with the domestic supply. We have our refineries producing. Central Oil Refinery is producing every day for the past since June last year. They've been producing consistently, and they meet about 30% of our demand. The Atuabo gas processing plant, for example, has also been producing LPG and putting on the market. We've seen our domestic refinery Tor also undertaking something around maintenance, and they are almost done with that. They'll be joining and also producing. So the two major refineries, Tor and Central, together can meet about 50% of our demand. And in addition to that, we are based on our import plan. We have cargoes that are supposed to also continue to be started at the end of May. We always plan our imports on a quarterly basis. I mean, to the end of April, we have our imports plan on a quarterly basis. The good thing for us here is that, because Dangote started producing imports into West Africa, majority used to go to Nigeria and then some come to Ghana. So both Ghana and Nigeria used to be the biggest off-takers of products from Northwest Europe. Now, because of Dangote, diesel, for example, is in abundance. And today I was just reading a story from S&P, a news from S&P Global Platts, that indicates that there's abundance of diesel in offshore Lumi markets. And so in terms of supply, and then mostly these products come from Lumi to Ghana after they have come from the Northwest Europe. So we have abundance of cargoes scheduled to discharge into Ghana. None of the cargoes that have confirmed delivery based on our imports plan have said that this war is affecting their ability to deliver based on schedule. So we shouldn't be scared about shortage at all. We've always kept this import plan balanced with domestic supply, and we've always had products available for consumers. When I remember that in 2022, when Russia attacked Ukraine, we faced the same challenge, but we didn't face shortages on our markets. And so our import plan has been robust, has been very reliable, and we never had shortages in Ghana.
What about price adjustments? The US dollar has begun to strengthen slightly. Some people predict that the dollar will gain against the cedi this year. I think I read Data Bank published this. I know the FX exchange rate is also critical. Should we be concerned? Because in the past few months, we've had relatively low petrol prices. The whole price floor discussion even came up with Star and Goil. But somehow, when global prices start rising, people find a way of raising the ex-pump price. So what is your price expectation, all things considered?
So it's unfortunate this is happening because it's definitely going to lead to increases in prices. Before even the war began on Friday, the new window started yesterday, and the prices that were going to go into this window, which started yesterday, 1st to 15th of March, indicated that prices were going to go up at the pumps. And this do not even take into consideration the effects of the war. And that, like I said earlier, the past two windows, we've seen prices go up because of rises on the world market. The exchange rate also has not been as strong as it used to be. It's depreciated marginally. So if, like you said, the US dollar strengthens further against the cedi, then the combination of the US dollar strengthening and the Ghana cedi, and the oil prices going up on the world market means that we are going to see our prices go up further at the pumps, and that's something we are not happy about. But let me say that the direct effect of the war as it's happening has shown that prices are going up. This morning, for example, when the markets opened, the price of diesel, for example, rose by about 17%, which is very significant. Crude oil closed the market on Friday around $70 per barrel. This morning, it opened immediately by about $5 higher, and it's expected to continue going up. By close of today, you will know how far it's gone, but definitely it's going to go up significantly because the war has started. And so we are not happy about the combination of the US dollar strengthening and world market prices rising. That's definitely going to affect price at the pump. But we will realize it more in the second window of March, because that's when these numbers that we are seeing will reflect.
But your big headline for today is that Ghana has at least a month and a half of both diesel and petroleum, super premium motor spirit. So there should be no immediate jolt in supply. And there's also a number of vessels ready to discharge. So in terms of availability, you are not concerned yet?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, when some saw our announcement that we have about 5 weeks and about 7 weeks of petrol and diesel, some are saying it is too small. Yes, if you compare it to what the likes of the US and China do, that is very small. But I think we have to put this into a certain context. If you look at the oil we can store as a country, the maximum we can go right now based on our available storage depots is 8 weeks. In fact, we got to know this because a few months back when Century started producing actively, most of our tank imports were not being sold onto the market. Century was going into the market. And our tanks got full. When the tanks got full, the stock levels could last us for only 8 weeks. So the reality is that we can't even store up to 9 weeks. But the most important thing is whether we have a plan to ensure that we always augment what we are consuming. And so the domestic production, the import plan we have always ensures that as we deplete or as we consume from the tanks, we are replacing it immediately. And so discharge is happening on a daily basis. We hardly have a day when the discharge facility is free. It's only free when we are doing maintenance. And for example, as we speak, maintenance is completing today at the facility. It started on Saturday. And immediately tomorrow, another vessel is going in to start discharge. So we should rather be looking at whether our supply sources are being blocked or not. Once that is not happening, then we are okay.
Thank you very much, Abbas Tasunti, who is the head of economics and policy regulation at the NPA. Earlier on, we spoke to Professor Vladimir Ntwedanso, who is a professor of international relations on the point of view. We've been looking at the geopolitics of the Middle East and the Gulf region, and also the effects on our economy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.